The year of existence of the city of Kirkland. That's why this summer is a good time to pick up a book and learn about the history of your city. Currently, Kirkland reporter Barbara Gehring tells us more.
The Kirkland we know and love is a flourishing waterfront community filled with people who care about their city and their environment. But 50 years ago, Kirkland was not the same city it is today. In fact, it was quite the opposite. From 1965 to 1995, Kirkland experienced a 30-year period of growth and development. Longtime community resident and former mayor Bob Neir documents this transformation and the key pioneers behind it in his book, A City Comes of Age. The book begins in 1965, back when Kirkland was just a sleepy little town.
Well, the city was in total disrepair. It was sort of like when you said, tell me about Kirkland, they say, oh, that's the town that has 2 stoplights and every street has a pothole in it. And nothing seemed to work right. The city was in very dire financial straits. They had overextended themselves on building a city hall in 1947. And really, the town was languishing.
Bob should know. He and his family have lived in the Kirkland area for 50 years. Bob served as a city councilman for 22 years, including 6 years as mayor. Throughout this time, Bob's wife Chris collected newspaper clippings about Kirkland. These clippings are what inspired Bob to write the book.
But then I got into reading these clippings, and I found out that this was really more of a story of a city that was growing up, a city coming of age. And that's the reason I named the book A City Comes of Age, because that's pretty much the way it all ended. Because the book there's no fiction in it, it's all fact. And I had to do a lot of work down at Heritage Hall. They have a wonderful resource library there for anybody who wants to find out about things that have gone on in the past. From any of the publications, they have it down there. So I did spend many, many hours at Heritage Hall with their folks, and they helped me in many of the little pieces that I was missing, why I found them there. So that I was able to put the jigsaw puzzle together, and the book turned out to be just a picture.
The book mentions both key events and key people that had a significant impact on Kirkland's growth.
An effort was made to change the form of government from what they call the strong mayor, which is the mayor's elected, to a city manager form of government, which in effect means you hire a professional to manage your city, subject to the policy direction of a city council, who is an elected body. And that happened in 1964, after about 2 or 3 tries. Finally, the citizenry said, we just have to do something different, and they voted in a new form of government.
In 1967, the city hired Al Locke as Kirkland's first city manager.
Al just turned out to be the right kind of person for the kind of town we were and the kind of problems we had and the direction we were seeking. And he had a great sense of humor, and he says he works well with people, mainly because he said he was left-handed. His strongest suit was being able to hire very, very talented people. And that combination is what made Kirkland work.
The change in government eventually led to much-needed improvements on Kirkland's streets and utilities.
Even though it was the first city on the east side, it was being bypassed, simply because it was just languishing. It needed someone to come in and say, we're going to fix this place up. We're going to rebuild the utilities, we're going to rebuild the streets, we're going to put sewers in, we're going to take out the old wooden water pipes, we're going to pave the streets, and that's the kind of person that was needed. And Al understood that, and he hired Art Knudsen, who was just the right man for the right time, because as Director of Public Works, that was what the city needed in the 4 or 5 years right after the government form was changed.
By mid-1970, the city was seeing many more changes.
There were many things happening along the shoreline. The Shoreline Management Act came in, and you could no longer build apartments out over the water. The preservation of wetlands became important. Opening up streams became important. And the city at the time was getting rather derelict in that many of the homes were allowed to decline because there were hopes that because of the underlying zoning that the city would turn into an apartment type complex of buildings. And I think it was realized that that was not a suitable end destiny for the city. And so they undertook a complete overhaul of the zoning and the and it created a brand new comprehensive plan. It took 3 years to do it, and it was signed off, and I signed it off in May of 1977 when I was the mayor.
In the late 1980s, Kirkland experienced a major annexation, bringing in Juanita and North and South Rose Hill.
Those were two very major events that really kind of got people to paying attention to what Kirkland had done, because to rezone a city and strip all the old zoning that was obsolete, that was in the wrong place, bad zoning, and reorient your city into the kind of a pattern that you wanted was quite bold at the time. And those things that were done by Kirkland were embraced by the state because we showed that it could work and it was accepted. And that part of it became a basis of the Growth Management Act, which didn't show up until about 1990.
Bob ends the book in 1995, with Kirkland having turned into a vibrant, thriving city.
Now, my hope is that that is something that our future city councils and our current city councils and the populace keep. It is such a delicate, precious thing that a few missteps and that quotient about your community could be easily lost, because it was interesting in how we acquired it, and it wasn't deliberately, but it was done in little steps by people who cared about the town. And I just hope that after, from those years post the book, which was 95, that the citizens still perceive that that's the kind of community to live in. And I hope it stays that way. Small town USA.
Bob hopes Kirklanders will enjoy reading his book and learning more about their city. Bob has donated copies of his book, A City Comes of Age, to the Kirkland Heritage Society. Proceeds will benefit the Heritage Society's work in collecting and preserving Kirkland's history. Barbara Gehring reporting for Currently Kirkland.
Thank you, Barbara. It's time once again